How's it going there, guys? Dave Nader here, and today I have another movie review for you. A movie review for Spider-Man Homecoming, which I just got back from seeing. This movie follows Peter Parker, and he's biding his days in his neighborhood, just being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, occasionally stopping petty thugs, but not really doing anything particularly high profile because Tony won't let him do it. You know, he wants to be able to be a part of big battles again and big conflicts like he was briefly in Captain America Civil War. But Tony's not letting him do that. He's trying to get him to keep his head down. And so he's just biding his days, as I said, just being a high school student. However, he finds out about Michael Keaton's character and the fact that he's doing some pretty bad things. And he sets out to stop him against Tony's best wishes, or really commands. And you get yet another MCU movie. We've had so many of these, and it still continues to impress me that, on a pretty consistent basis, the vast majority of the MCU movies, at least by my standards, have pretty much all been really good, like minimum. I mean, there have been a couple that have been weaker than others, and a couple that straight up, in hindsight, just weren't all that good to begin with. Iron Man 2, I used to like it, even in my ranking the MCU movies video that I did a couple summers ago. In that video I said I actually like Iron Man 2. Really, over the years, no. Iron Man 2 is just not a good movie, and neither are either of the Thor movies, if you ask me. I mean, they're okay, but this, luckily, happens to be another really good MCU movie. And in fact, honestly, in terms of pure entertainment, I had more fun in this movie than just about any of the other MCU movies. And this is like by far the most fun I've had going to see a movie at the theater this year so far. This movie was a total blast to watch. It's just ridiculously entertaining. Tom Holland is great in the movie. I liked Tobey Maguire, and I also honestly really liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. Despite the fact that a lot of people complain about the Amazing Spider-Man movies, especially the second one. Some more than others. People are kind of mixed over those movies to this day, but I think, as we get farther and farther away from those movies and the fact that we're not actually going to get any more of those, there's not going to be a Sinister Six movie made by Sony. People have been getting a bit more negative towards them, but still, at the very least, I always thought Andrew Garfield was really good in those movies, and Tom Holland stands up in this movie to past portrayals of Peter Parker's character and surpasses them in a lot of other ways. I'm not going to say that he's my favorite Spider-Man, although he might actually be about, at the very least, he's probably about tied with Tobey Maguire, because they each did certain things better than the other one. It just kind of balances out. And overall, I'm going to have to say that I think all the Spider-Man performances are really good. But, moving off from that tangent, just talking about Tom Holland, he does stand on his own in this movie. He's great as Peter Parker. He's very likable, as is just about every character in this movie, because while maybe the writing for the characters isn't always superb, we'll get more on that with Michael Keaton's character in a little bit, maybe the writing itself isn't always superb, but the acting for all of Peter's friends and pretty much everyone he comes across in this movie is so good. Like, there's some really great performances in this movie. Peter Parker's best friend, oh my gosh, the guy had me laughing out loud quite a few times. I just couldn't help but smile whenever the guy was on screen. He's just extremely likable and very funny character. He had a lot of good lines. And, as for good lines, the whole movie has really good dialogue, especially at the times when Robert Downey Jr. shows up. He has some great memorable lines as he's talking to Tom Holland, and all the acting in this movie is great. And, the comment that I made before, that maybe the character writing itself isn't always the strongest, that's not to say that the movie has, poorly written characters. It's good. It's just that, the writing, honestly, is what the acting, honestly, is what makes the characters so likable in this case, because everyone did just such a good job. As for Michael Keaton, his performance is good, and so I enjoyed his screen presence in this movie, but overall, I was hoping that they were going to do more interesting things with this character by the end of the movie, and they didn't really. They tried to make him a little bit more personal and understandable of character, and give him some kind of funny moments here and there, and Michael Keaton is good in the movie, but he's just overall he's an alright villain. He gets the job done. He was fine for this movie, but he's not particularly memorable, unfortunately. So, despite the fact that Michael Keaton's performance was good, just the writing for the character wasn't up to par, so it didn't do it. His character didn't do it for me all that much in the long run. But on the whole, the characters in this movie and the acting for those characters, spot on, very well done. A lot of really good banter in this movie. It's a very funny movie, consistently. You know, I maybe Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 had, like, the funniest moments in those movies were funnier than the funniest moments in this movie, but there are also some major, just jokes that just did not go well at all in those movies, and so it kind of balances out. And overall, I'd say, on a consistent basis, this is honestly the funniest MCU movie that we've had yet. It has a lot of really good moments, and I laughed out loud quite a few times in this movie. And that's a large portion of the reason why I say this is one of the most fun movies that the MCU has done ever. It's really funny, but it also is pretty exciting. You know, this movie doesn't have that many action sequences in it, and that didn't bother me. You know, especially because when they did happen, they were really well done. The movie is stylishly directed for those action sequences. The CGI looks pretty darn good for the most part. And the choreography for Spider-Man himself as he's flipping around, it looks great. It looks exactly how it should look. It's very Spider-Man-ish, and they're really fun action sequences. You know, I mean, if I want to bitch and whine, you know, I could say that, well, I mean, it's not as good of action as in Spider-Man 2. No, it's not on that level, but I mean, Spider-Man 2 is one of the best superhero movies ever made, so it's not a very nice comparison to make. Try to be fair and give this movie props in its own right, and if you do that, yeah, this movie, it has good action, it has good characters, good acting, really great acting, a lot of good humor all throughout, as well as good banter. It's, you know, again, getting into whining and moaning, I mean, technically this movie isn't as well directed as some of the other movies in the MCU, like, you know, like The Avengers. I think it's a better looking movie, or Doctor Strange, or the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I think those movies are more visually impressive to look at, but this still is definitely a well-edited, well-shot movie, and there is, you know, the direction has pretty good style to it. It's an entertaining looking movie as well, and also the music in this movie is better than a lot of the other MCU movies. The music was by Michael Giacchino, so that's why. I was like, oh, so that's why the music was less meh this time around. Because, you know, if I might have mentioned him before, but, you know, Tony Zhu's channel, Every Frame a Painting, he made a video called The Marvel Symphonic Universe. If you haven't checked that out, it's really interesting. But yeah, that video did kind of point out to me, I was like, oh yeah, the music for the MCU movies, it's always just kind of meh. But that wasn't entirely the case this time around. There were some moments to where the music was flaring, and I was like, oh, dang, like, this is a powerful moment. I'm really getting into this. However, all this said, you know, despite the fact that I do say this is one of the absolute most entertaining MCU movies we've had yet, and just like the most entertaining movie I've seen all year, it's really fun time. Because of the fact that it does have problems, mainly with Michael Keaton's character, he just kind of disappointed me in that. And maybe I would have liked to see a little bit more of Robert Downey Jr. in this movie. Although really that's not a big deal, because he was in the movie, I'd say, enough overall. It's just me being a fanboy and wanting to see him more. Just basically because there are some things that drag the movie down in the long run, I am going to give this movie a B+. It's a very good movie for sure, however, it falls just shy of greatness. But really, despite the fact that I rate it lower than a number of other MCU movies, I think this movie has more rewatch value than some of those other ones because it's just so much fun, as I keep saying. And also, it occurs to me, B+ is becoming the most overused rating in the history of this channel. The past, like, 57 movies that I've reviewed, I've given a B+ to. What is it? You know, I did Wonder Woman before this, Alien Covenant, Life, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the previous MCU movie. All of those I gave a B+ to, and now this is a B+. You know, maybe I should, like, do more negative movie reviews or something like that. If you guys would like to see that, you know, not for a particular genre or anything, if you have, like, bad movies that you want me to review, or just if you would like me to review more bad movies in general, it's just to where we have more varied discussions, and it's not just me talking about good movies that I give a B+ rating to all the time, then, well, there you go, let me know, guys. Although, also, just between you and me, guys, you know, of the B+ movies that I've been reviewing, like the past 5 that I've mentioned, including this one, this is the best out of all of those. I think it's the most entertaining movie out of all of them. But anyways, you know, I'm going on too long already. Basically, guys, go see the movie if you haven't already. It's really good. If you like this video, please rate and comment and subscribe. And if you want to, you can also share. Goodbye, guys.